Ladies and gentlemen of the media, thank you for joining us. This is the weekly press conference of the Alliance for Change. Today, November 8th. With me, I have to my immediate left the co-founder and the past leader of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, Member of Parliament, followed by the president of our youth arm, Vice President, Mr. Onyx Duncan. Thank you for that correction, Onyx. And to my right is the vice chair of the Alliance for Change, Mr. Michael Carrington. Joining online, we have Colin Haynes, who will be making a statement. We also have Mr. David Patterson joining us online. As starters, we want to say that the way is now clear for the Ghana Elections Commission to aggressively pursue electronic identification and use of biometrics for the 2025 regional and general elections. Recently, the Chief Elections Officer presented a report of the Commission of Inquiry to the Elections Commission. While the Alliance for Change acknowledges the challenges, we believe there is sufficient time for implementation of biometrics identification and electronic voting. The Alliance for Change is on record for demanding that such systems be implemented ahead of the 2025 polls. We note that recently, the General Secretary of the PPP said that he supports enhanced biometrics for the elections. This must be a signal to the PPP commissioners at GCOM to support the implementation of these systems. The opposition has already stated its support. Where there is a will, there is a way. And GCOM must now be willing to move forward for implementation of an electronic voting system. Guyana cannot claim to be building a modern democracy if it holds on to an archaic system of paper identification for voting. We restate our position that we will support financial appropriations for GCOM to implement biometrics and electronic voting, and we welcome similar expressions from the government. We will now have a statement from Colin Haynes, who is joining us online, followed by Mr. Onyx Duncan, and then the chairman of the party, Mr. David Patterson. Colin?
Yes, thank you so much, Beverly. It's great to be here. Members of the media, I would like to indulge in you to cover issues on mental health. There is a silent kill in Guyana today, and it's mental illness. And we must do our part to both highlight the challenges and the opportunities for us to conquer this disease. So my appeal to the members of the press is for you guys to work and do some more coverage on mental health in Guyana. Now, my statement, mental health crisis demands comprehensive reform. Guyana is facing a mental health crisis of unprecedented proportions. A critical barrier to addressing this crisis remains the lack of reliability of current data on mental health. The nation currently holds the grim distinction of being ranked second in the world for suicide rates. Based on the data from 2001 by the World Population Review, and this is the last data we have, it shows a staggering 31.26 cases per 100,000 people. The number of unreported cases remains high, particularly in regions 2 and 6. Now, I'm going to also highlight some stories of mental health. And guys in the media, you might be familiar with some of this, but the current 911 system is inadequate for medical and civil emergencies. When calls are made to the line, it does not provide a direct link to medical services, such as urgent hospitalizations and people suffering from mental crisis. Recently, we learned of an issue of a young lady in Yarracabra village on the Linden-Suzdijk Highway who had a mental episode observed by members in our community. Calls were made to 911 for an ambulance, but the ambulance services stated that they do not provide services for mental illnesses. The police, unsurprisingly, cannot deal with the matter, but made a referral to the mental health authority. The villagers called the suicide hotline, but there was no one available to answer the call. The villagers had to resort to their own means of restraining the young lady with a rope to cover her nudity. On October the 31st, a 19-year-old security guard was found hanging from his work site at the Amerindian Hostel in Anna Regina on the Essequibo coast at 5:50 a.m. The young man had lived with his father, who stated no visible issues at home or at work as mentioned by his supervisor. The young man was last seen when he left for his work at 21:40 hours to work the 2300 to 0700 shift. Only a month ago, a well-known biologist and conservationist specialist was found dead in a camp in the Mazaruni region. The police recovered a suicidal note in his phone addressed to his family, but the deceased has been vocal about his mental troubles, both on social media and blog posts online. Proposed solutions. In response to this urgent crisis, the AFC is advocating for a comprehensive overhaul of Guyana's approach to mental health. Central to this vision is the establishment of a dedicated mental health institution within the Ministry of Health. This institution would focus on specialized training, rigorous research, and quality assurance through program evaluations. The AFC also proposes the creation of a mental health corps, a special team designed to provide immediate crisis interventions, such as the one we've seen with the young lady in Yarracabra, across all 10 regions of the country. This initiative will aim to bring much needed mental health services to communities that are currently underserved and completely neglected. The party recognizes the efforts by the current administration to formulate a digital platform with information to provide awareness through the Gatekeepers program. However, it is a disparate approach to building existing structures that haven't worked. This program should be coupled with a path to screenings for mental illnesses and have a robust suicide prevention program that identifies culturally the cause of mental illnesses and avenue for referral to treatment services. To further strengthen the mental health workforce, the AFC calls for training and employment of professionals across all 10 administrative regions. These professionals would serve schools and all health facilities. Recognizing the need for data-driven interventions, the AFC emphasizes the importance of conducting cohort and longitudinal studies to assess the levels of anxiety, depression, and other mental disorders across different ethnicities and locales. By reducing stigma and enhancing support, these reforms will aim to encourage individuals to seek help before reaching a crisis point. In conclusion, Guyana's mental health crisis demands urgent and comprehensive action. The Alliance for Change proposes reforms that offer a pathway to address the root causes of this epidemic, to improve access to mental health services, and ultimately save lives. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, members of the head table and members of the media. I'll be reading a statement here on the Alaki Primary School and the allegations of fraud. The Alliance for Change is calling on the Ministry of Education and regional authorities in Region Number 3 to investigate allegations of fraud at the Alaki Primary School. According to reports reaching the AFC, the signature of 2 teachers were forged in the application for a loan from Guyana Public Service Cooperative Credit Union. The teachers had no knowledge that their names were added as supporting loan applications made by 5 of their colleagues. The applications were approved in August, and it was only after the loans were disbursed that the forgery was discovered. Further, there are reports that a 15-horsepower boat engine bought with taxpayers' money for the school was sold. The Alliance for Change has been informed that the school's Parents Teachers Association is aware of these reports and have called on the Ministry of Education, the Regional Democratic Council, and the Department of Education Region Number 3 to intervene, but their requests are being stonewalled. The Alliance for Change calls for a criminal investigation into these allegations. Thank you.
Thank you, Onyx. We will now go to Mr. David Patterson who is online and will address GPL matters or matters pertaining to the Guyana Power and Light.
Good afternoon, Beverly. Good afternoon, colleagues and members of the media. As all Guyanese are well aware, power outages has returned with a vengeance as predicted. The PPP's management of this sector continues to be abysmal. Of concern to the Alliance for Change, and we assume to all Guyanese, is the cost that the country has to pay for the poor decision-making of the PPP. With the recent announcement of an award for rental of a 75 megawatts power ship, Turkish power ship, the costs associated with these two rentals for our country is tremendous. Particularly in an era when public servants and the general public are complaining about the high cost of living in the country. And the Alliance for Change would like to enlighten the citizens of Guyana the actual cost that they will be bearing for these rentals of one of the 36 megawatt power ship, as well as the 75 megawatt power ship, as recently announced by the Vice President in his press conference here today. The daily rental for the one that is operating now, power ship, the 36 megawatt power ship, is 13.5 million Guyana dollars a year. And the 75 megawatt ship that will be coming online, they said in another 6 weeks, will be 35.3 million Guyana dollars per day, bringing us a total of 48, almost 49 million Guyana dollars per day. These both contracts are valid for 2 years. And this is the cost of the rental only for the power ships. And so that would mean that the Guyana will be paying $17.8 billion per year, or $35.6 billion to these two companies, billion Guyana dollars to these two companies for rental. But added to that, the rentals for these power ships are just for the generation. Added to that, the Guyana government has to put two other sets of costs. Fuel, the fuel for the 36 and the 75 megawatts power ships to run heavy HFO would be 75.5 million Guyana dollars a year, or 26.5 billion a year. And over the 2 years of the contract will be 50 or 53 billion Guyana dollars a year. In addition to this cost, there is another contract, which is for the transportation of the fuel to these power ships, and the 36 megawatt is at station in Berbice, and I assume that the 75 will be there as well. The daily rate for transportation of this fuel is 4.2 million Guyana dollars a year. It will be 1.5 billion for per day, 4.2 million Guyana a day. For the yearly cost will be 1.5 billion, and for the 2 years it will be $3 billion. Cumulatively, the summary of the costs that we will be paying, Guyana will be paying, because of the poor decision making of the PPP, because they had zero plans for our power sector, just for the rental of these two ships. Per day, 126 million Guyana dollars. Per year, 46 billion Guyana dollars. And of course, with the 2 years contract, that'll be 94 billion Guyana dollars, which are 26 million US dollars. What the Vice President and the people of Guyana has to know, this is just the cost for generating. Added to the cost to deliver this power that is generated by the power ships are GPL's dispatch, administrative, and line loss costs. And this is what it costs GPL to deliver a kilowatt per day. The total for the two is the 36 and the 76. The 36 megawatt per day is 19 million, 90.6 million Ghana dollars per day. They will cost GPL to distribute that power. And the 75 megawatt ship will cost GPL 41 million Ghana dollars per day. And this sum of this part is made up thus GPL administrative costs. And obviously these costs were at the beginning of this year. I assume they probably would be worse, but GPL administrative cost is 5 US cents per kilowatt hour. The transmission cost is 1 US cent per kilowatt hour. And our line losses, which stand at 30% commercial and technical line loss, that's another 5 US cents per kilowatt hour. So therefore, the total cost for GPL to dispatch the power received from these power ships will be 11 US cents per kilowatt hour. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the all-in costs per day for the decision makings of the PPP in our power gen, and this is just simply for these two contracts that they went in. It excludes the 27 containerized sets that they bought and all the other existing GPL sets. I'm just purely dealing with the rental of these power ships. The all-in cost delivered power to a consumer per day for this 111 megawatts hour will be 186 million Guyana dollars per day. 68 billion Guyana dollars, 315.9 million US dollars per year. And obviously for the 2 years of the contract will be 136 billion Guyana dollars or 631 million US dollars. And I know the vice president is very fond of quoting the costs, so I will give it to him and I can share it. I will share this with the media so that he can have a ball trying to disinvolve what we have. The rental, and he's correct in his assessment that the rental for the sets all in would be about 21 US cents per kilowatt hour. GPL admin cost, as I mentioned before, will be 11 US cents per kilowatt hour, bringing us to a grand total for these two ships at 32 US cents per kilowatt hour, or in the case, if converted to Guyana dollars, 68.51 cents per kilowatt hour. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to remind you when the APNU AFC coalition left the limited office, the cost to the consumer was no more than 42 cents, 21 cents. That is all in generation and distribution GPL admin cost. So obviously, you can, by those numbers, assess how poorly GPL is being managed by the PPP and how much more just for these two sets that the government has caused us by their poor decision making. They've invested very little other than the gas to shore, which is mounting. All these extra costs now has to be added on to the cost of the gas to shore, because obviously the only reason we are renting is because the gas to shore project, which is supposed to be finished and completed and operational right now at the end of 2024 with the initial estimate, still is not. It will be another year, according to the PPP, would be doubtful until it becomes operational. Thank you very much, Beverly.
Thank you, Mr. David Patterson, Chairman of the Alliance for Change. Very staggering costs put out there, enough to give you a blackout. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I now invite you to ask your questions. Of course, we ask that you observe the usual courtesies, identify yourself and the agency you represent. It seems as though David figures Oh, I see a question from Antonia Day. I was just thinking that the numbers put out by Mr. Patterson got everyone a bit, dizzy. So I will take the question from Antonia Day, followed by from Mr. Adam Harris.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Members of the press and turning day nightly news. Mr. Patterson, you gave a breakdown as to the figures by GPL. In light that the vice president has announced that this will have an additional megawatt in terms of the power shift, do you think that it will be feasible? Because, quite frankly, persons are still complaining about the constant power outages per day. And as you know, that Ghana still has to enhance its power generation capacity since that we are undergoing a gas energy project and then likely the second phase. So my question is, do you think that this additional power ship rather, would be feasible?
Thank you for the question, Antonio. I've always said, and I can repeat, that the PPP's approach to power management has been absolutely abysmal. Every grid in any progressive country adds on power in a staggered manner depending on their needs. As of 2020, when we demitted office, we, as a coalition, had progressively over the 5 years added on power purchased and installed generations, about 70 megawatts of power. The PPP from 2020 to 2024, this year, did absolutely nothing to our power grid, despite them opening hotels and they're saying and making claims that we're the fastest growing economy in the world. And as you can remember, by December 2023, the entire country was hit by rolling blackouts. And that's purely because even the projections that we left there, that is enshrined, that you projected to grow by your power demand was projected to get about 25 new megawatts, 25 to 30 new megawatts per annum. And that is what we did. We actually bought 45 in tranches of 45 megawatts. They did absolutely nothing from 2020 to 2024, which means that our grid is about over probably 100 and 115 megawatts without power. They claimed, as you all know, Antonio, that how they're building this gas ashore project, which was supposed to be 300 megawatts, it will be finished. We told them that approach was idiotic, that they're leading the country into dire straits. But of course, they listened to no one other than themselves. And so in 2024, what they did was, as we could remember, they went to Panama and bought some third-hand containerized sets, which the reports are that they're not functioning correctly. And that was installed in January of this year. And then about in March of this year, still suffering blackouts, they went to get a 36 megawatt power ship from Cuba. And that obviously still is not a function. And now this new rental of the 75 megawatt from the same company, I assume that they got a 36 megawatt. Obviously, a new generator, I just told you the cost that we will have to be paying. We purchased in 2019 46 megawatts of brand new generation, and that cost the country installs $51 million US. We will be paying in rental, and those generators are operating now. And if we didn't install those in 2020, the country would have been worse off. We'll be paying these two companies for 2 years, a total of $426 million US for rented equipment. I don't know under which, economic czar that makes sense. And that's for 111. We could have purchased 180 megawatts of Guyanese's own HFO power for that exact same amount of money. Makes absolutely no sense whatsoever.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. Mr. Harris, Adam Harris.
Yes, a very good afternoon. Uh, to the brother who talked about the fraud at Aliki. I don't remember his name.
Mr. Duncan, Onyx Duncan.
ONIX?
Yes.
Good. Now, Mr. Duncan, first of all, was this fraud reported? Secondly, when did it happen? And thirdly, was there any action following the report?
Thank you so much, Adam. These are information coming into the Alliance for Change, so I do believe that it wasn't reported. However, we are still looking in to get more ground cemented information so that we can be able to follow up and follow through on this right now. But we do know that the boat that was handed over in the APNU AFC time in 2019 by Mr. Harmon was sold. So that is information that we know that is concrete evidence.
But the engine being sold, obviously the people complained. Was there any action to involve the police in this purported illegal sale of the engine?
If I may, Mr. Harris, at this time, the matter is being addressed by it was the PTA who brought this matter to the attention of the regional officers. And my understanding is that it may also have been brought to the Ministry of Education. The sale and this forgery of signature apparently happened sometime this year, between May and September. So the matter right now is being handled at the regional level, and I think at the Ministry of Education. But the PTA is very concerned about this. I believe they had a meeting with the Co-op Credit Union on the matter of the forged signature, and they're now considering taking criminal action against the person so accused of selling the engine. If they're not satisfied with what is happening at the regional level, they will likely approach the police.
All right. And for Mr. Patterson, the GPL situation obviously is worrying everybody. Sir, you said that the rental is so exorbitant that it could have provided new installed generation. You said that you didn't say it now, but the coalition left a plan for continued expansion of the electricity program.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, is the plan being looked at? Is it being followed? What is happening? Why this ad hoc arrangement that is costing us? Because we, the consumers, still have to pay for whatever the current becomes.
Look, Adam, the ad hoc arrangement is purely the PPP's lack of vision and corruption. We've said it several times before. They came in, met a valid plan, had a very competent management team. You can remember how they got rid of the CEO immediately and brought back a CEO who they fired. And they brought him back. By the end of 2020, by mid 2020, the country, we had reduced power outages to when we demitted office to 34 per year. When we came in, it was over 200 power outages per year. We've reduced it. You do the maths. Obviously, and the questions of corruption and mismanagement around GPL is public knowledge. You can remember there's a barge of fuel on the way which spilled in Tobago, which was and which the record showed on the way to GPL, obviously bypassing any sort of procurement regulations. But in regards to the plan, there was a strategic plan we had, including a gas energy project, obviously in a totally different location. for quartered amount, 500 million US dollars, as provided by Exxon and our things, including the generators and those things for 200 million. That was obviously on the Mahaika Woodlands area. That was agreed by all the parties before. They came in with no study, no reports, no anything like that. Decided how they're going to move this gas to shore project to Wales. The cost skyrocketed from 500 million US dollars to 2.4 billion US dollars and climbing. They claimed that they would have it finished by now, 2024. We would have been enjoying electricity at half the cost. Obviously, they're now saying that it can't finish until the end of next year. They claimed that they would be having electricity. Now they've retracted on that, and they've now gone to saying that it will reduce electricity. Every single thing that they have done has been ad hoc-y and poor management, and that's why we are here where we are. We left them with a projection which says that you need a certain amount of power every year. You have to buy it. It takes approximately a year to buy, ship, install, hook up a generator of say 60 megawatts and over. So obviously you have to be doing this in a year in advance. They did absolutely nothing. They have done absolutely nothing other than throw the money out behind the gas to shore project. You know that project is in arbitration already. They haven't even finished the foundations. I don't know if they started, but they're already in arbitration because of their poor planning, and it's just a total mismanagement. Now that the tire has hit the road, now that the country is facing rolling blackouts every day. I mean, in my office where I am, I already had one for the day. I had 3 yesterday. They are doing all these, the plaster works, which obviously is passed on to the country. I mean, this money, we're talking for the rentals of these two equipment, all in 426 million US dollars. That is more than enough to give every public service servant 100% pay rise and still have a left over. But these are the costs the country bears for their poor administration.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I see Live Wire News has a hand raised. Can that person identify themselves, please?
Good afternoon, Madam Moderator. This is Cordell Jones from Live Wire News. Should I
Go
ask
ahead.
all my questions at once, or will I be able to ask again?
You will be able to ask. We will answer your questions,
One at a
Mr.
time.
Jones. So if you can give us one or
Okay.
maybe two
So-
questions, you'll go with those.
So since Mr. Ramjitan said one at a time, I'll start with you, Mr. Ramjitan. Last week, you said Mr. Jagdeo was speaking to 4 Russians, but the dossier compiled by the coalition and sent to US officials didn't mention this. In fact, the only mention of Russians was 2 Russians had checked into the Marriott and they disappeared. How do you explain this, sir?
I don't know of what dossier was sent. I am giving you expressly what was sent to me, and that is what I did an interview with Cathy a couple of years ago in relation to that. Those are the documents, and I have now retrieved them from the Commissioner of Police, and indeed, there were 4 persons. And I will tell you, Cordell, that indeed I signed 4 deportation orders. As a matter of fact, the report is more clear. The lawyers that were representing Barajagdeo, Kisun and Kisun Farm, they went to also make representations for the 4 men. And we have the names and everything. So whatever discrepancy from a dossier as against what the commissioner sent to me, well, I will go by the commissioner's documentation.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Just to follow up on that, please.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead.
Yeah. So you're saying that you are a dossier that has your party's logo and name to it. You're not going to stand by that? I have
I will
the
stand
document
by
here. I could
what
share
I
it
have
to the
got.
Zoom meeting.
No, no, well, I'll stand, whatever the dossier has, I will stand by what I am now telling you and what I spoken, is it 3 or 4 years ago, when myself and Kathy,
Probably
it
before.
is about, right, the press conference that we had at the time. And that was what it was accurate. And I'll tell you also that indeed I signed 4 deportation orders. It's not 2. Good.
So it's
Next.
safe to say the dossier may contain inaccurate information.
You don't
Mr.
cross it.
Jones,
Yeah,
Mr. Ramjitan has provided an
Yeah.
answer.
Sure.
If you're not satisfied with that answer, I'm very sorry, but Mr. Ramjitan speaks for the AFC and for his role as minister at the time. So that was his answer. Do you have another question?
Yes, ma'am. This one is a little more general. Anybody can answer. No, City Mayor Alfred Mentor said that his proposal for special rates for political parties was as a result of a letter requesting same from the Alliance for Change. Has the party made such a request to the council?
To the best of our knowledge,
No, so not the best. We have not, and then we have answered this before, and so that's I think should be clear enough for you, Mr. Jones.
another
My
question.
final question is, I see Miss Laura George on the live. My final question is for her.
Laura, is it?
Miss George, a few press conferences ago, you would have mentioned about internet being removed from an indigenous community. I was just trying to see if you would have gathered any evidence of such, and if you'd be willing to share it with the media. And also, Mr. Patterson would have mentioned the administration he would have served under put internet in over 200 villages, or about 200 villages. I was wondering if she had a chance to identify those and if she could share it with the media. That's all for me today.
I don't know if Laura's on, if she wants to answer, but I can answer because I was on the trip. The village of Surama, and we've said this before. It's unfortunate that Mr. Jones has not been current. We've said it before. The village of Surama, they removed, and we were there. We inspected, we removed all the equipment, save and except the solar panel. And the reason why they did not remove the solar panel, which was powering the obviously the internet was installed by Minister Hughes, was because there was a beehive on the solar panel. The technicians asked the village to move it, and of course the village said, "Oh, you're moving our equipment, you move the beehive," and that was there. And Mr. Jones, just for clarity, we said over 250 locations. I hope you can do some research before you we never said 250, 200,000, 200 indigenous communities. 200, I think the number 270 locations, including indigenous villages. Thank you.
Mr. Jones, any other question?
No, ma'am, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shamar Musa, please go right ahead.
Thank you so much. My question is for Mr. Patterson. It was reported that the PPPC added 76.9 megawatts of new power to the system from 2008 to 2015, while the new AFC added just around 14.2 megawatts within its 5 years in office. The incumbent has lamented that the inheritance of systems that were not maintained or upgraded. Do you believe the necessity to have the requisite supportive mechanisms has affected the pace at which power could be added to the system? And do you believe that the unprecedented rate of increased housing allocations, more businesses, and so on, is necessitating the use of alternative sources until the gas to energy project comes on stream?
Mr. Musa, I have written on this, and I'm sure your newspaper, I would have sent it to your newspaper. You never actually published a letter, and I have detailed and calculated the amount of generators purchased by the APNU AFC. You can go back to that. We purchased new generators for Bartiga, new generators for Anna Regina, new generators for Onvowac, new generators for Canefield, new generators for Garden of Eden, which are the ones that are running now. We purchased those. Obviously, so the question of the PPP is talking about 14 megawatts. Obviously, it's their figment of their imagination. The question of unprecedented growth, the question of demand. Look, with or without oil, with or without the PPP, with or without the AP and UAFC, growth is inevitable. There were projections done, as I said before, on the required amount, and we took into consideration by 2020 the proposed expansions, and then you added on a 15% reserve. So therefore, if we said that we needed 30 megawatts, we added on, we increased that by 15% to ensure that we stay ahead of the curve. So the PP has been in power they've been off for 4 years. I mean, and they've been waxing lyrically about their success. So I'm very, very surprised that you can ask a question of unprecedented growth. I mean, obviously, didn't they project that? Didn't the president, every time he cut a ribbon for a hotel, did he not know that a hotel takes about 1 megawatt of power? So if you open 10 new hotels, as you were claiming, and all the malls that you're claiming, every time you do that, you're putting power onto the grid. So to claim now unprecedented growth or those things like that now after we have blackouts, it really is it's a lack of foresight and poor planning. It's inexcusable to say, because what you're trying to claim is that the housing, everything went ahead of you and you got flat-footed. But that's even worse.
Can I
Just
add
to
to
follow up.
Is
Yeah.
that Mr. Musa?
Yeah, just to follow up.
Go ahead.
Mr. Patterson mentioned the addition of new generators. Can he say if the generators were for new power or
Yes,
was
yes.
it the routine replacement for old systems?
New power, sir. New power, brand new sets, nothing like the Honduran sets, no rented sets. If that helps you. So new power. Brand, you don't buy new, you don't buy
Reconditioned.
reconditioned units. We never.
Mr. Patterson,
bought that.
can I back you up there?
Yes,
Who's it?
yes, Mr. Gorin.
Mark, welcome, Mark Goring from Region 10.
Hi, good afternoon. You missed me completely. I haven't got to read my press statement. However, concerning the generation of electricity, Mr. Patterson could add also there that a genset was purchased also for Kukwani for them to have 24-hour electricity. And currently, for the past couple of months, Kukwani have been getting blackout constantly and low voltage damaging person items, electrical appliances, and so on. And up to now, we cannot get no proper explanation as for why, after 4 years in government, this government is not able to make sure that Kukwani have stable electricity after the coalition would have put everything in place for Kukwani to have 24-hour uninterrupted electricity. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mark Goring. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Mr. Mark Goring of Region 10. I see, Mr. Harris, you have a question again?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have two, but I'll ask them one at a time. The first question, perhaps Ms. George could answer, or anybody. The Madhya fire, that seems to be a dead issue. What is happening with the survivors and their relatives? What kind of interaction is going on at this time with those people?
Can I answer that question, because it has mental health implications, and I would love to answer this question, Adam. So first of all, Adam, the Madhya scenario was handled poorly. When something like that happens, right? And this is normal for best practices around the world. you would have to send in public health practitioners in there, and they would have to surveil. When a fire happens and something like this traumatic has happened where people have lost lives, it creates trauma across a whole community, not just the families, but the whole community. And the stories we heard of Mahdi and how the Ministry of Health handled it was poor. They sent in some unqualified counselors and psychologists who weren't equipped to deal with the issue. And my sources also told me, in addition to that, it was disparate. They didn't have any coordination. So no one knew what everyone was doing. Again, we didn't go directly and talk to everybody else in the area. Another thing is you're talking about the follow-up. So in issues of trauma that has happened here, and like I said, it's not only trauma for the families, but also there's trauma for the community. You have to constantly send in teams and you have to constantly survey. I've seen reports of toilet papers and a lot of relief supplies. The people didn't tell us that they need that, but the ministry and the politicians think that they knew what the people wanted. And that's why you need to have a robust public health and mental health program that can identify the needs right away for crises. Now, the other thing I want to mention is how the government had hastily brought the families to the memorial. Again, that was terrible to do because folks were already in trauma. And then you're going to take them now to a memorial and further add grief to them to show the community or show the world or show the country that you care for them. It's just not right. So, Adam, your point is from the inception, this thing was poorly handled. By the way, I've even reached out. I can go on record and say I've reached out to the Ministry of Health. I reached out to the minister personally to give him my voluntary services as a mental health practitioner to assist. And unsurprisingly, they said that they were okay, and they weren't.
I see, Mr. Jones, you have another question. I see your hand up.
Yes, for Mr. Patterson, I'm sorry I'm not too well informed, but since I'd like to ask you if you could just give us an update on the whether you're still before the courts in relation to the Harbor Bridge asphalt plant account issue.
That's a simple yes or no, Mr. Patterson.
Yes, this is we're 4 years now. The magistrate, and I do hope her well has been ill. It's been cancelled 95% of the time in 4 years. So obviously, I don't know. That's it.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Harris. I forgot you had said 2 questions. So my apologies. Please go ahead with your second question.
Thank you. I don't know if you people are trembling in your boots, but Vice President Jagdeo talks about going to lobby Donald Trump to clarify all the lies and what have you that everybody took to the State Department and all of that and tried to get action. What's your reaction? Do you still hold to the position that lies are being, not lies are being peddled, that you were right in what you were doing, or are you now going to back off because you're going and talk to Trump?
As we shake in our boots, Adam, I will ask Mr. Ramjatan to answer that.
Adams, we are not shaking in our boots at all. As a matter of fact, we go to these people with the truth. And quite frankly, we are told by them that we already know that. A lot of the times when we think that we are giving information to them, whether they are advisors to senators that came, as most recently happened, and we were invited to give our perspective as to what the political situation is in Guyana, they are very much well educated and informed about the happenings in Guyana. And of course, they would want our perspective on certain political matters, and we also shed those. So Jagdeo could say whatever he wants. Of course, we know that is what he does. An extraordinarily garrulous fella that speaks a lot of untruths and spouts a lot of disinformation, as you know. So he could do this because, quite frankly, what he wants is distraction from our messaging. Lots of times, autocrats like Jagdeo would want distractions to happen. So he goes there in his Thursday conferences and would spout these things that Ramjatan and Nigel Hughes lied to the American advisors, Aubrey Norton lied to them, and all of that. What we tell the people are the truth, and especially from documentations. We don't go there without documentations. And so some of them are said to already been collected by the embassy. Some are said that, okay, we haven't, thank you very much, and we leave it to them. But we are very happy that the American embassy and the American officials that come give us a hearing as to our perspective. Because I am certain when they go and meet Freedom House officials, they will get a totally different perspective. And they will want to do the falsities and so on. So that is why the people come to us. And we give them that. And we don't shake at all. Quite frankly, in my opinion, the person who is shaking is Jagdeo.
If I may add to that, Mr. Harris, to inform members of the media that we have sent a message of congratulations to President-elect Donald Trump through diplomatic channels, and we will, as we have done with previous US administrations, we will be engaging the Trump administration. I see Musa has a question.
Yes. So, Mr. Norton had said that he's aware of the AFC going into PNC stronghold areas to seek support. Do you believe that this would erode trust, especially if a coalition is to be pursued? And Mr. Norton also hinted that he wouldn't be willing to concede leadership of a coalition to a, quote, weaker political force. What are your thoughts on this?
May I ask our chairman, Mr. David Patterson?
Mr. Musa, thank you for the question. Our position remains the same. The Alliance for Change is doing its listening and grounding in all communities. We don't feel there is any party that has a transport on any community in this country. So we will continue going into communities once to spread our message and obviously garner support from whoever is willing to lend it. And the question of leadership or anything like that is not even something that we have even considered. We have said that we are working on our party, and we've laid out our plans, and nothing has changed from that position.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. To close us off today, we will take the question from Demerara Waves.
Mr. Patterson, Dennis Broader, is the AFC poaching PNC supporters? And secondly, what do you really expect out of the Trump administration, given the fact that it was the Trump administration that had strenuously called on the coalition to concede defeat in the Met Office in 2020?
Well, Dennis, we're not poaching anyone. We're spreading a message. We're going to be listening to persons so that we could be better informed to assist them. And I can't see how listening and spreading a message can be equated to poaching. And we don't. And as you know, we go into all communities. Areas perceived to be PNC, area perceived to be PPP, areas perceived to be any other political parties. It's a message we're spreading. And obviously, we will, whenever there's a change in administration, we look and assess. And as Beverly said, we will be engaging the new Trump administration. We look forward to that. Everyone as a political party assesses what the policies are of the new administration, and obviously you see in areas in which we could collaborate or not. We did this when the Labour Party changed from the Conservative. We would do this if any of our sister CARICOM countries change leadership. And that's just simply what is done with political parties, with colleague countries, wherever.
Thank you,
Um,
Mr. Patterson.
a follow-up, please, on the inter-party relations and so on, Mr. Patterson. Um, do you believe that the coalition stands a good chance of winning the next elections under a presidential candidacy of Mr. Norton?
That's not a question that's up for debate at the moment. We have told you exactly what the Alliance for Change is doing. And if or when or whatever it is, that's a question to be discussed, we will, but that's not something that's engaging us at the moment. So you wouldn't want to speculate on that. Beverly, is there any other thing, Dennis?
That's all right. That's all for
Beverly, I
now.
see Miss Laura George would like to make a comment before we close.
Yes.
Okay, please, technical assistance here. Can we bring in Miss Laura George? Laura, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes,
Thank you.
good afternoon. So I just wanted to quickly respond to Jones's question in relation to the number he's seeking. The recommendation that I made really was calling for public information on at least the 242 schools and information on what bandwidth or access to internet services that they have. So perhaps that is the one that Mr. Jones can seek information on and follow up to say that this is important for us to know on the rights of the child and their education and their right to services, effective services. So that's what I would say. I've also sent the link to the report of the ICT project that he can browse and get all the information that he wants, because that information it was put together for the purposes of the government of Guyana and the partner entity, which was the UNDP. So that's one. The second one I wanted to an answer to was for Mr. Harris. Thank you for your question in relation to Madia. I just want to support the response of Mr. Haynes, who said it was poorly handled. And we agree, it was badly handled. It was poorly handled. Today, the government reports or the press and what is there says that a secondary school is being built in Mykobi. That's a good thing. It would be important to know what human resource support they have going beyond a physical infrastructure. So in terms of mental health experts, teachers to teach in the secondary school, and what services that we have onwards, I would say that working with communities and indigenous communities from the Alliance for Change, the issue will also be to revisit perhaps I don't know what sort of payment you would call that the PPP administration did in terms of saying, we'll give you $5 million for a child's life that was lost. So all of those actions that it took would need a revisit, even though they also did the commission of inquiry, which resulted in a child setting the fire, and that's why the lives were lost without taking responsibility. The state of Guyana shamefully has refused, under the administration of the PPP government, refused to take responsibility on the lives lost of those children and their state care. So that still remains a very, very sore issue. We have families, communities, those who suffer the losses, but also who witness the fire, children who were involved or who were tasked with removing bodies from the debris, the fire site. All of those things, we have not had a thorough report of what actually took place and where we failed as a nation. So that's just some things that I wanted to say.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura.
you.
Ladies and And unfortunately, as I have been indicating, that's all the time we can afford at today. My number is 664-2025. If you reach out to me in case you have other questions, I will try my best to relay those to AFC Authority on that subject area. So again, you can message me or you can call me on 664-2025, and we'll try to have your questions answered. Thank you.